All right, so this is again more so a rant style video. I had a different video planned to go up today, but just isn't coming out how I wanted to, so it's gonna be postponed a week. But I still want to get my thoughts on a topic that's been going around recently in other sports worlds, and that is the case of what is going on with the ratings drop in the NBA. And this is from a massive, massive casual fan perspective. I am fully admit I am a casual fan. I'm not one who dives deep into the X's and O's and knows every bit of history the same way I do with football and the NFL. But I am still a casual fan, and that is the market that the NBA is starting to lose this year. And there's a few different reasons from like my perspective on it. As typically around this time in the spring, once the football season ends, this is when I really begin to watch basketball again, right after the All Star break, to be prepare myself for the playoffs. And I just haven't found myself doing that often. The Heat Pacers game from last night was my first like real bit of basketball, a full basketball game I've watched, and it just wasn't entertaining in the same way that it used to be for me. And part of it is most likely I am a Heat fan. They have not been great this year, and thus their product has not been in the entertaining side. But the crazy thing is that was a pretty solid game against the Pacers last night. Like it was a high intensity game, came down to the final minute, but I just couldn't find myself really caring about the game. Again, part of it is totally the fact that the Heat are middle of the road this year and are entering a transitional rebuilding phase. But at the same time, I should still have a rooted interest for my team. I've watched the Dolphins go through so much hell over the past 20 some odd years, and I still find myself riveted in every single game. And even as a casual fan, I know I can still have that same mindset, even when it's a blowout against my team, because I'm also a Panthers fan. And over the past few years, the Panthers have garnered more of my interest, and so has the NHL in a whole. And it's for a few different reasons, I think. And again, this is coming from a casual fan perspective whose primary sport of interest is football and the NFL. So obviously, part of it is I like the physicality that hockey can bring, and it is interesting to see when players just say "fuck it, we're gonna fight." And we saw that with the Four Nations face-off, which I'll get into a little bit later. But there's that, and also there was a game against Nashville that the Panthers played recently. There was two fights in that game. They come out of relatively nowhere, and it makes the game interesting because it gets the crowd into it, it gets the benches back into it, and it makes the games that little bit more entertaining because yeah, these players do not fully like each other and are able to really get it out for that quick while. And 2 nights ago, from when I'm recording this, is when Edmonton went back to South Florida for the first time since Game 7, and that game was incredible. It was relatively a meaningless game. I mean, it got the Panthers back in the first place in the Atlantic, but it wasn't like a hey this. It wasn't like Game 7. They didn't have the same impact. But I couldn't. But it's just it enthralls me. And again, part of it is the Panthers have been a much better team in the past few years than the Heat. But this really does stem from both of their miraculous finals runs 2 years ago, when both teams were the eighth seed and went on to make the finals, and they both lost in 5 games, I believe. But I feel like the NBA world as a whole and the game of the NBA has really kind of lost the idea behind what made basketball interesting. Yeah, I am a casual fan that grew up with the Heatles, so I don't fully have like the most a lot of say into it. But I remember watching those finals runs that the Heat made in the early 2010s, and I'm just again, part of it is probably nostalgia as well, but I'm just like remembering those and I'm like, yeah, these were fun teams to watch. And even with like the same high end caliber teams like the Cavs and the Celtics this year, from what I've seen with them, it's just not entertaining basketball. And during regular season, typically, again, for me, normally the NBA isn't the most entertaining, but it has its moments. And playoff time is when things start to ramp up, same way in most other sports. So maybe I'm overreacting here, and we just have to wait till playoff time. And then you realize the differences in the All Star break between the NBA and the NHL. This is, by the way, if you've not realized yet, this is a comparison video basically. But you have what the NBA did with their All Star game this year, their All Star weekend. And then you look at what the NHL did for their All Star break this year. And there is such a stark difference with the leagues and how they're handling marketing themselves. With the NBA still relying on the fact that we're the NBA, people are going to watch us no matter what. So we don't really need a full best on best style of game, because if you want that, you're going to just watch any of you're just gonna watch any of the regular season games anyway. Even though most regular season games are not on easy to find television. Meanwhile, the NHL in a spot where they realize they need to start promoting the league more, as people are starting to they need to start promoting the league more and start really showcasing their talent, as they're going to be entering a transition phase of their own once Alex Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby leave, and they need to usher in this new generation of players. They're marketing the game so much better than the NBA has this year. From the commercials promoting the next generation of players, from the best on best games that they do showcase, aka the Four Nations face off, which was incredible. I mean, again, the first game between USA and Canada for the Four Nations, the first 9 seconds had 3 fights. And that's just entertaining. And it helps that the game itself was also entertaining. And then the championship game as well between USA and Canada was fantastic. I kind of didn't really care who won because, again, Panthers fan, it was nice to see Sam Bennett get the game tying goal and to see Reinhardt win. He's probably one of my favorite players on the Panthers, aside from Barkov. But it's like the difference between the way that these teams are having the mindset when it comes to the next generation is very important. I was talking with Toasted, who probably should have been a part of this video, but I'm recording this at 9 a.m. So, but I was talking about this with him last night, and he bringing up the good point as well that the NBA is still marketing LeBron and Curry and KD heavy, which they have every right to do so. Those are the faces of the league for the time being. But you need to realize that when you need to start promoting the next generation of players a lot better. And in particular, Wemby. It feels like he has had no marketing towards him, and it makes no sense. It's not because it's not like he's on a team where it's not like he's on a team where you can't market them properly. He's on the Spurs. You can market the Spurs pretty damn well, especially Wemby on the Spurs. Like they need to market the next generation better, and they just haven't, and it has led to just, oh yeah, I forgot they were playing tonight. Compared to the NHL, where I'm like, oh yeah, where I'm like the morning of, I'm like, okay, Panther game today. It's there's that very stark difference that really makes me feel worried about the NBA, because I still like the NBA, I still want to watch basketball, I still like basketball, but this is the least amount of basketball I have watched up until this point of the season. And comparing that to the fact that this is probably the most amount of hockey I have watched up to this point in the season. I have definitely shifted more so to a secondary hockey fan than a secondary basketball fan like I was. And a lot of that does fall into Adam Silver and the NBA as a whole. Because again, watching that Heat Pacers game last night, there were so many moments where I'm just like, what is this decision making? What is his play style? Because I mean, again, it was entertaining. There was times it was entertaining, and I mean, like, there's a difference between a game where they're shooting that many threes and missing, and what happened last night where they're shooting that many threes and making. But it still felt like there was a lack of system in these teams. And again, this is from a very casual standpoint, but I do also like diving into X's and O's a bit, and I do watch some creators who do that. But for as much as I'm like, okay, the Heat are doing this, the Pacers are doing this, and this is what they want to do, most of the time they just end up taking threes. And yes, they're going in, but it's just on. You need to do more than this. Meanwhile, again, I'm watching the Panthers play, and I'm seeing their forecheck, and I'm seeing I'm seeing their defense, and I'm seeing the way they get shots on net, and I'm seeing how they've scored some goals. Verhaeghe's goal against Edmonton the other night was beautiful. Bennett's goal against Nashville from a few nights ago was beautiful, and it feels like it's poetry on ice, and I feel like I've heard the NHL described that way a lot more before, but it legit feels like I'm watching a show and I'm watching some kind of entertainment. And the NBA used to feel that way, and now it just doesn't, and I don't fully know why. And it's the case of I want the NBA to entertain me the way that it used to, but it just hasn't, and the marketing has not helped it, because again, as a casual fan, I can only watch LeBron be LeBron so many times before I'm like, yeah, I know what to expect. And even with them adding Luca to that team, yeah, it was mind blowing, and yeah, it was shocking, and it was kind of like, okay, let's see how these guys play. And now is the point where I'm just waiting for the playoffs to see how they play there, because that's always been more important for the NBA, it feels. And with it all being said, watch hockey, watch the NHL. If you feel like the NBA product right now is not great, tune into some NHL games and look at the difference. Even if you don't fully understand it, I didn't understand the NHL when I first started watching when the Panthers made their incredible run. When I first started watching, but when I really started getting into it, I've been to a few hockey games all throughout, but like really started watching the NHL again. Pretty sure, yeah, at 3 o'clock today, from when this is being uploaded, so about 3 hours from when this is going up, there's the Penguins and Bruins playing on ABC. Watch that game if you can, and if there's obviously not your favorite basketball team on, and because it really does show the difference between a beautiful crafted sport on in a very like, hey, you think you can do this, but you really can't way, and what the NBA has become. Because there's a difference and it is entertaining. It's crazy how one of them used to be kind of a forethought for me, and it's now the more entertaining product. And again, I fully admit, final time I'm gonna say this, I fully admit part of it is the fact that I'm a South Florida sports fan. The Heat are not great this year, fuck Terry Rozier, and the Panthers are looking to go back to back. But still, the Panthers have had great seasons before, and I'm not finding myself this intrigued like I am now. But with all that being said, those are just some very casual thoughts about all the situation. If you want a really good, more in-depth breakdown of all this, go to Kenny Beecham's second channel, Kenny 2, and he has a beautiful video that's like 25 minutes long that does a lot better at discussing my issues with the NBA as well. But also, there's also a way to kind of like promote the NHL because I do really like the NHL and what hockey has been doing this year. Again, I've watched damn near every single Panther game. This is like the first time that's been the case. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you all next time. Have yourselves a damn good one. Peace.